restored to integrity after the crisis was over. But since the inception of World War II, we have had a continuous state of impending or partial war, with retained constitutional restrictions. World War II faded into the Cold War, and the Cold War into the War on Terror, giving us over two-thirds of a century of war in peace, with growing security measures, increased governmental secrecy, broad classification of information, procedural clearances of those citizens able to know what rulers were doing in secret. The requirements became more stringent, not less, after World War II, and then again after the Cold War. Normality never returned, and the executive power increased decade by decade, reaching a new high in the 21st century, a continuous story of unidirectional increase in the executive power. At the bottom of it all has been the bomb. For the first time in our history, the president was given sole and unconstrained authority over all possible uses of the bomb. All the preparations, protections, and auxiliary requirements for the bomb's use, including secrecy about the whole matter, and a worldwide deployment of various means of delivery, launching by land, sea, air, or space, a vast network for the study, development, creation, storage, guarding, and updating of nuclear arsenals, along with an immense intelligence apparatus to ascertain conditions for the weapons' maintenance and employment. All these were concentrated in the executive branch, immune from interference by the legislative or judicial branches. Every executive encroachment or abuse was liable to justification from this one supreme power. If the president has the sole authority to launch nation-destroying weapons, he has license to use every other power at his disposal that might safeguard that supreme necessity. If he says he needs other and lesser powers, how can Congress or the courts discern whether he needs them when they have no supervisory role over the basis of the claim he is making? To challenge his authority anywhere is to threaten the one great authority. If he is weakened by criticism, how can other nations be sure he maintains the political ability to use his ultimate sanction? Every citizen is conscripted into the service of the Commander-in-Chief. As Vice President Dick Cheney put it on Fox News in a December 21, 2008 interview with Chris Wallace, the President of the United States, now for 50 years, is followed at all times, 24 hours a day, by a military aide carrying a football that contains the nuclear codes that he would use and be authorized to use in the event of a nuclear attack on the United States. He could launch the kind of devastating attack the world has never seen. He doesn't have to check with anybody. He doesn't have to call the Congress. He doesn't have to check with the courts. The Vice President was using these facts precisely to justify the policies of the Bush administration on a whole range of issues: warrantless surveillance of American citizens, indefinite detention of suspects without legal representation or habeas corpus, kidnappings across the world by rendition, imprisonment of those kidnapped in secret black sites outside the United States, enhanced interrogation of the accused by techniques like waterboarding. Cheney was right to say that the real logic for all of these things is the president's solitary control of the bomb. He was also right to say that something like what the Bush administration did was tried, adumbrated, or justified by other presidents, going all the way back to the creation of the Manhattan Project, without any authorization, funding, or checks by the Congress. That was the seed of all the growing powers that followed. Every president since has found ways to leverage concessions on the basis of the great mystery of his power over the very continuance of the world. Executive power has basically been, since World War II, bomb power. Part 1. The Making of Bomb Power. 1. Fatal Miracle. At the end of his presidency, Dwight Eisenhower warned his countrymen against a military-industrial complex. That might seem, at one level, historically ungrateful on Eisenhower's part, since a military-industrial complex won the war that made him famous. Without an incredible explosion of industrial productivity put to military use, the armed forces of the United States could never have prevailed over the